Hi, and welcome to the Letter S podcast. My name is Joe Gross, and I'm joined by Anina Jasper Brody, who, like myself, experienced the loss of a parent at a young age. In this series, we'll be sitting down with individuals from all ages and backgrounds, each having experienced the loss of a parent. Join us as we delve into their unique journeys, exploring how they've navigated challenges and found motivation to lead positive, meaningful lives. Together, we'll uncover inspiring stories and valuable insights that can enrich our own paths. I invite you to join us on our journey to spread awareness and hope to those seeking a community and happiness in their lives. Episode 2 of the Letter S podcast begins now. What a day it's been so far, meeting our new guest for today, Eliana Neighberg. How are you doing today, Eliana?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. It's been a wild day so far, but it's been a great one, and it's been very nice to meet you, and we can't wait to get into it more. How about you, Anina? How are you doing today?
Great, thank God. Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem is right. As we all know, everything happens for a reason, and what happened with the headphones today definitely happens for a reason.
So you're welcome?
Yes, all thanks to Anina. Eliana here is 21 years old. She's from West Hempstead, New York. She's currently studying at Stern College, and she's actually an only child. How does that feel, being an only child?
It's definitely different. I will say I grew up getting pretty much everything that I wanted, being the only person in the house, the only child. But in a way, I feel like I have siblings because I have a lot of family friends. So,
do you sometimes wish that you ever had other
100%.
Siblings than being an only child? Of course, it's amazing getting
100%.
anything that you want all the time.
It's actually funny you say that because whenever I meet people and I tell them I'm an only child, they're like, I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, you don't really give.
I don't give off that vibe.
You don't give that type of energy.
Exactly.
I heard that's a word people use these days.
It is.
All right. So Eliana's father here, Yerachmiel Shmuel Zevlin HaKohen Zichron Livracha, passed away at age 53 when she was just about 8 years old. He had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma for around a year and a half or so. Something about Eliana is she's very passionate about interior design specifically, something she's hoping to do after she graduates from Stern. And she also has a strong love for working with people with developmental disabilities. Is that kind of like a HASC type of thing? You ever worked at HASC?
Yes. I worked at HASC for the past 2 summers. So it's definitely one of my favorite places on earth.
Do you think that because of what happened to, losing your father, made you care for other people as well?
At first, when he passed away, I was kind of fearful towards the special needs community. And then about 2 years ago, I realized that I wanted to actually get into it. So I started HASC and I never wanted to leave.
Interior design is also really cool. How did you come up with wanting to do that? Is that something someone in your family does, or you just found something somewhere?
I was always a creative kid growing up. I was into fashion. Obviously not when I was super little because I don't know how my parents let me leave the house looking the way I did. But as I grew older, I realized what fashion actually means. And when I was in 11th grade, we actually hired an interior designer to help me redo my room. And that was the point where I realized that's what I wanted to pursue in my life long term.
So this podcast is called The Letter S. Everyone involved in this podcast has lost a parent at a young age. And when you lose a parent, the word parents gets transformed to the word parent because it's no longer plural and it's now singular. And sometimes people aren't so conscious of that, and maybe in school a teacher has said, give this to your parents, not recognizing that not everyone has that. So can you share a little bit about something that you might have experienced along the lines of this word, and what the letter S means to you?
For sure. So actually, when you said that, something came to mind from high school. I remember they had this day where it was father-daughter learning, and they never did like mother-daughter anything in the school. It was just the one program that they had was father-daughter learning. And I just remember people who didn't know that I had lost my father when I was younger come up to me and they were like, I can't wait. Like, are you coming? And I would always say, most likely not, because I don't have a father to bring. And yeah, I have family friends who are like father figures to me, but it's not the same. Like, I could bring my grandfather, but it doesn't change like that sadness inside of me.
How do people, you mentioned that you say to people, no, I'm not coming because your father passed away and you don't have a father to bring. How is telling people, and how do you feel that people react to that?
So usually whenever I bring it up to people, their first thing that they say to me is, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, I had no idea. And then there's other people who aren't as kind about it, which is a little bit shocking. I had someone once say to me, oh, that must be so hard for you and your mother. Did she ever remarry? Like, she didn't get remarried? And I'm like, no, is that like that's not a must? And they're like, oh, then like you must have such a hard life. And I said, I really don't. Like, yes, obviously I miss my father every single day, but I know that he's always with me. And just because my mom didn't find someone else doesn't mean that, like, she doesn't necessarily have to.
Right, that's not something that bothers you. It's totally understandable to you.
Yeah.
And while you were growing up with your father till, age 8, I lost my father when I was 6. And I don't remember so much, but, I remember some things like playing basketball with him or him giving me as much candy as I wanted. He loved Jawbreakers. That was like his thing.
Oh my gosh.
I was never a big Jawbreaker person, but he was happy about it, so sure, why not? Do you remember so much from your father? What kind of memories do you have of him?
So, since I was an only child, I definitely got all the attention. My father always wanted to give me the world. He would play sports with me. I would sometimes even go to his office with him when he was working, and I became best friends with all of the other lawyers in the office, and I would go to each person's room and obviously bother them when I wasn't supposed to. My father was very confident. He was a leader, and he always, like, growing up, he taught me that, okay, like, you need to be confident in yourself and you do what you think is best and just always try and make other people happy.
And you definitely resonate with that for your life. Like, that's something you think
100%.
about all the time.
100%.
Do you mind sharing us with the story of how, it all happened when you turned 8?
For sure. So I didn't really know growing up what cancer was. My dad was a healthy person, never had any issues. And one day I just remember coming home and my mom was all upset and she's like, okay, let me just sit you down and I need to explain something to you. And obviously me being like the little child I was, I don't know how to sit still. And
Me either.
Me either.
People would
ADHD at its finest.
And people would say I'm not a child these days anymore.
Yeah.
And I still am.
So she sat me down and she pretty much said, like, Daddy's really sick right now and he's going to be in the hospital. He has something called cancer. And I was like, what's cancer? Like, I still fully to this day will never understand it. But she said he's going to start losing his hair, so he might look a little bit different. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I kind of just, like, brushed it off. And then I remember I saw him when, like, after he started losing his hair, and I got a little scared. I was like, why do you look like that? And my mom was like, we talked about this. Like, it's part of something called chemo. It's a side effect. And gradually I noticed my father becoming weaker and weaker. And I was like, why can't you play with me? Like this and that. Why can't you come to like school things? And I just remember one day in summer camp, it like hit me. I was with the camp director and she happened to know my father. Like they knew each other like from way back when. And I just started crying and she's like, what's the matter? I was like, well, my dad's sick, but he's going to get better, but I just don't know when. And I think that was the point in time that like it hit me that I don't know if he's going to actually get better. And he was in remission for a point in time. And I was really excited. I was like, hey, great. Like, your hair's going to grow back. Like, it's going to be so much fun. Like, we're going to be able to do stuff again. And then the cancer came back. And this time it was going a lot faster and spreading a lot more. And I remember so vividly the morning that I found out that he passed away. I was home, and I'd wanted my mom to come home the night before because I missed her, and, like, she was there more than she was with me. Like, I was pretty much living at friends' houses. And my friend's mom was sleeping on my couch, and I walked downstairs, and I was like, oh, like, good morning. She's like, oh, like, I'm going to call your mom now. So I'm on the phone with my mom. I'm like, oh, how's Daddy doing? And she's like, you know, like, he looks a little bit better today. And I was like, okay. And then my friend's mom was on the phone with my mom, and I just see her, like, I just see tears forming. And she's like, just go out of the room. Like, it's going to be okay. And I was like, what's going on? Like, he was just fine. And then she put me on the phone, and my mom, I could tell she was trying to keep it together. And she's like, Daddy passed away. So my first reaction was, oh, okay. Because, like, what else was I supposed to do? And then the rest of that day was kind of a blur. So.
Wow, that's a very powerful story. So you never really knew throughout the entire process what was actually going on because you were 8 years old.
I would go to the hospital. I would visit. I would hang out in his room. I would draw on the pillow that they had. And yeah, I was just looking forward to him coming back home. And that, obviously, it didn't happen, but yeah, it's definitely something that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life.
Of course. And it's a good thing to remember it. Just so you know you have your father in the back of your head at all times, and you know what he taught you and what you learned from it as well. And throughout the years, as that happened, has anyone specifically taken a step up in your family, whether it's the same side or the other side of the family, and really taking control and care of you?
So so definitely my my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, cousins on both sides have been amazing. They're a really, really great support system. And also, I have two very special families in my community who have really stepped up to the plate and have become my second family. And I really couldn't imagine life without their help or without them being around. So,
I also was 8 when my father passed away, so I like relate to a lot of what you're saying. And he also passed away from cancer. So I think it's like very interesting about how much like you remember. You like remember a lot of detail, and like I think that's just like very like special. And like I'm envious of that. Can you share like a little bit about your father's personality, maybe some stories or memories that you remember about him, so we, Joe and I, and also everyone listening to this podcast can get a little sense of who he was.
yeah, for sure. My father was definitely the type of guy who almost everyone wanted to be friends with. He was very loud at times, but he also knew when to be serious. He loved going to the gym. He loved anything sports. He actually really liked boating. Like we have a family friend who has a boat, and I feel like it's a very manly thing to like, just boats in general.
I would agree. Is it like a yacht?
Definitely not a yacht, but maybe close. I'm not exactly sure because I've never been on the boat, but I've heard good things.
Okay. We might have to take that out for a spin once.
I'll see what I can do. He was very passionate about being a lawyer. He loved helping people. That was his favorite thing to do. Also, not to mention, he was a Hush Gumma Minion type of guy.
Love it.
Yes, kiddish clubs all the way. He loved having a good time with his friends. Definitely have a few funny stories of Shabbos day where my mom didn't know where he was at one point. Turns out he was just having a good time with his friends.
At the kiddish club.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Where else? He wanted everyone around him to just be happy and feel comfortable. He never wanted to make people upset. He always he's like, okay, like, fine. If that happens, it happens. Like, it's all going to work out fine. He loved his family more than anything. My mom was his biggest cheerleader, definitely. And he's definitely probably my biggest role model ever. Like I relate to him more than anyone.
Any of the characteristics that you have today are embedded from him, would you say?
100%. My confidence, he definitely taught me that. Leadership, I mean, he was definitely a lot stronger than I was, not just physically, but mentally. He was a lawyer, so I'm never going to be at that level, but maybe one day I'll get there. Never know. Definitely, like, he always wanted to be put together. He had this thing where when he would go to a courtroom, he would always make a comment about how it looked very unprofessional when there were lawyers with long beards or man buns, ponytails. He was always saying, "Oh, that's so unprofessional. Like why do they want to look like a girl? Like when they're defending someone." He was just he liked to be put together. He liked to dress nicely, and I feel like I definitely get that from him. Because my mom always says I have no idea where she got this from because it's definitely not my side of the family. So
That's funny.
yeah.
Do you feel that you need to instill some of these things from your father? For sure. Of course, they are great attributes to have. But do you find that there's a balance between how much you need to come off as your father, but also your own personal identity?
Right. So definitely I take like small bits from my father's personality and I try to instill them in myself, but I'm also my own type of person. Like I have my own quirks, I guess you could call them, that I never thought that he like would have. So I'm a mix definitely of both my parents, but I definitely try to also be like my best self and not just think about his character traits all the time.
I think that's very important because we all got to be ourselves at the end of the day. But also, we learned so much from our parents and how they were brought up in their lives so they could bring us up too. And just being able to find our identity, but also be a little bit of a reminder of the parent too, is a huge aspect of living your own life.
Exactly.
Do you have any special traditions or activities you do in memory of your parent? Like going out on a boat? Going to a courtroom? Hopefully not going to a courtroom.
So funny you say that. I actually went to my first courtroom last summer because I had to do it for a class.
Yes, for good reasons only.
Yes. We sat in on some cases. Definitely interesting. Don't know if I will pursue the lawyer field because it's just not my thing, but it's great.
Find out the laws of how big a piece of furniture needs to be in a room.
Exactly. Maybe they have interior design lawyers. Who knows? But definitely, I like to go out for dinner. My father was very big on family time. We used to go to my grandparents almost every single Sunday when my father was alive and also when his parents were alive. And the whole family would get together and we would either go out to a restaurant or order in and just everyone was together, everyone was happy. There was always some sort of joke going around or being spread. And it was just good, like quality family time.
That's very nice. I like the whole getting together with the family once a week. I think it's very special. And you could also learn a lot more about the different characters in your family too.
100%.
Very important also. Just like I remember when my father passed away, my mom, like I'm a twin and my twin, and she like, whatever, it's a lot to lose your husband and also have to deal with 2 8-year-olds running around. And I remember that once a week we would go sleep. My brother and I would go sleep at my grandparents' house, his parent, like my dad's parents. And like we did it for like low key a really long time, like once a week, just like to spend time with them. Obviously we don't do that anymore, but like that was very like crucial time and like something that we all like still think about and just like important to like be with family. In life, we all go through new opportunities and experiences. And through those experiences and opportunities, we meet new people, and we have to share our stories with those people. So through this, for us, we need to tell them about our loss and our new lives. Can you share a little bit about how that is for you? Maybe say a story of an awkward interaction, of something along these lines?
For sure. So when it first happened and people would ask me, what happened? Do you miss your dad? I used to not be able to finish a sentence. So it definitely took a few years. Whenever people would ask me about my father, I used to not be able to finish a sentence. I remember my high school interview. That was an experience in and of itself. I remember the principal started saying, "Oh, I see here you lost your father. I'm so sorry. Like, how are you doing? And what did he pass away from?" And I'm just sitting there and I go, "Oh, he was sick." And then I just started choking up and I could not get my words out. And I think the principal realized too soon. I should not have said that. My bad. And
It's okay. We won't show them.
I got in. So then there were other times where I would be with friends and they were like, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that because your father's not alive." And I would just sit there and be like, "It's okay. It's fine." But also when it first happened, the first few years, it didn't hit me. It only hit me when I got to 9th grade. And I just remember one Shabbos, someone said something. We were at someone's house, and a lady said something about someone she had lost. And I just remember that switch just went off, and I came home, and I didn't know how to tell my mom how I was feeling. I didn't understand how to get my emotions out. I just kept crying and crying and crying. And then there was a point in time where I became a major hypochondriac and had a severe fear of hospitals. I still don't like hospitals, but it's definitely better now. But I would always think if I had a headache, it's like, "Oh yeah, I have a brain tumor. Okay, I'm dying now." And it's all because my father was a healthy person, and it just, you never know what tomorrow is going to bring.
Right. That's very difficult to, obviously get through. Was there a way that you were able to get over that?
Sometimes I have some fears in the back of my head, but I've learned to deal with them and calm myself down in those situations, whether it's having an anxiety attack about something that hurts me, and then I like hyperfixate on it, and then I feel like it's hurting me for a week, and I'm like, why is it hurting me? But it's just in my head. It's not actually, I just jump to conclusions. So
Is there a way that you handle that? For example, doing an activity, listening to a specific song that gets you over that?
So one thing about me, I really like doing puzzles. It's always just calmed me down. I enjoy it. I also like doing an art project or painting. It just eases my mind and it puts me in another universe. So it's definitely a lot more calming when I have something that will help me calm down. If I'm in a public space, it can get hard, but I try like breathing exercises. When I was younger, my mom had this thing. She's like, pretend you're blowing out birthday candles, and like you just breathe in, and then you blow one out, and you blow two out, and three out until like you feel like you're okay.
That's a great tactic to use.
Yeah, if anyone's out there listening, Great tactic. My mom taught me.
Well, thank you for sharing that. On a serious question, have you ever painted puzzles?
I didn't know that it was a thing.
I think it could be a thing. You could paint anything.
I think we can make it a thing now.
Have you ever painted a puzzle?
I have not. You do not want to see me with a paintbrush.
Same. Worst painter. I'm the worst.
It's fine. I can only really do the paint by numbers.
I can't even.
Because if you give me a blank canvas, I don't know what's going to happen.
Throughout your life, how do you feel that your friends and family supported you? Do you have any stories about being bullied for it in school? And how do you handle that?
So, thank God, I've never been bullied for it. I've definitely felt, though, like the odd one out, because whenever it's Father's Day or my dad's birthday, I feel a sense of emptiness. And meanwhile, everyone's posting about, oh, happy Father's Day to the best dad ever. Like, you do so many amazing things. And I just look at those and I'm like, okay, that's great for them. I mean, happy Father's Day to my dad, but he's not here physically. And usually on Father's Day, we kind of either do stuff with family or we pretend it's not Father's Day. So just to be, like, for comfort-wise, I guess. But yeah, people throughout my life have been pretty nice about everything and comforting. When I was younger, I don't think my friends knew how to react. So I also didn't know how to react. So I guess we were kind of in the same boat. But it's definitely a challenge, but I feel like I have a really good support system to help me get through everything.
Do you feel that people reach out on those days, for example, Father's Day or your father's birthday? Do people reach out and say, I'm thinking about you?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I have other friends who have lost a parent, and usually if it's Father's Day or my dad's birthday, or even if it's Mother's Day, like, I'll reach out to, say, a friend of mine who lost her mom and just let her know I'm thinking of her and her family. So it's like both ways.
Do you have a mentor or someone you talk to, current or past, about the loss of your dad?
Yes. So I have a therapist.
Occupational?
Very funny.
Good one, Joe.
Eliana's mom here is an occupational therapist at
Yes.
Montefiore if you ever need one.
She is incredible. Incredible. Yes, I see a therapist. She's incredible. And I'm not going to shout her name out because we all have private things in our lives.
Yeah, no need to do that.
Yeah.
And Nina, why were you pressuring her?
What if it's my mom? Obviously it's not. My mom's a psychologist. Should I say her phone number?
Like, plug it.
917-250-8943. Dr. Michelle Jasper Brody. No joke.
All right, guys, heard it here first. If you need a psychologist. And Nina's mom, I'm sure she's fantastic.
She is incredible. I've been seeing her for many, many years, and that will hopefully continue. She has helped me through almost everything. I don't think I would be the person I am if it wasn't for her. She's gotten me out of very deep, dark places, and she's showed me that it's okay not to be okay sometimes.
if someone's listening to this podcast and is on the cusp of deciding whether they want to go see a therapist and lost a parent at a young age or didn't, and it's just like has that question, what's something you would say to them?
Go for it. It can never hurt. It's always important to get help if you ever feel like you're in that dark place and you don't know how to get out. There's always people to talk to, and whether it's working through a breathing exercise or finding something that you enjoy doing that will calm you down from being panicky, let's say, it's a game changer. Having that person who you can just, I guess, spill your guts out to. You can tell them anything. They won't judge you for it. They're there to be your support system in the best way possible.
Right. And if anyone needs a breathing exercise, birthday candles.
Yes.
And I think it's very important that anyone can always feel free to go to someone like a psychologist to go to. It's very important to get a little bit off your head because you can't always have something stuck up in your head. I'm no psychologist. Again, this is no ad for Anina's mom if you need a psychologist. But it's a very important topic that's spoken about for the last several years about mental health, and it's really a huge thing to find someone that you feel comfortable with going to and expressing something.
Because you don't want it all building up also, because then
Exactly.
that's not good. Yeah.
Again, any psychologist, I hope we're saying the right things.
We'll ask my mom. So, as you navigate loss, how have your feelings towards Jewish things like saying Yisker, observing the yurtzeit, and saying Kaddish changed over time?
So it's a really good question. When everything happened, I was really young, so I didn't actually know what Kaddish was. So I didn't have the opportunity to say it. I know my mom did, but I didn't really ever go to shul when I was that young to hear it. And in terms of saying Yisker, I used to be embarrassed for a really, really long time. I actually made my mother very upset with that because I would walk out of shul and pretend that I was normal and didn't lose anyone because I didn't want people staring at me. And then in seminary, that was, I think, the second time I started actually saying it, like being serious about it. I remember I had a friend who told me that she wanted to be with me when I said Yisker so that I wouldn't be alone. And this was regular girl, thank God. She has both parents, and she's like, I'm going to be there for you, and it's going to be okay. You're going to be able to get through it. Now, it's definitely hard to see when everyone gets up and starts walking out of shul, and you kind of just sit there, and you're like, not going anywhere.
So now you feel comfortable going into Yisker.
Yes.
How has your relationship with God, as we're on this topic, fluctuated over this experience that you've went through, especially that you went through seminary, and I'm sure throughout the year or two that you were there, that this was a big topic on your mind, as it was for me.
So,
Me too.
Yeah. It was definitely very hard. There was a point in time where I was just angry with God. This was actually right before I left for SEM. And there's a little story behind it. I was home by myself one day, and I was just in one of those dark, dark places. I was just upset. I didn't know who to turn to or what to do, so I just sat in my bed and just cried my eyes out. And I was saying Tehillim, and I was screaming Shema, And out of nowhere, I just started like screaming at God. And I was like, I just don't understand why you did this to me. Why did you take my father away from me? He was a great person. Like, why do bad things happen to good people? And I know everyone says, yeah, I'm going to see a light at the end of the tunnel, but right now I'm not seeing any light whatsoever. I just feel like I'm going to be in this dark place forever, and I don't know how I'm going to get out of it because I don't have my dad here to physically tell me that everything's going to be okay. And that night I went to bed and I had the most bizarre dream I think I've ever had in my entire life. I was sitting in my dining room in my house with my mom. It was the exact layout of our house, and the shades were wide open, and I see my father coming up the walkway. He walks into the house, and he obviously goes to my mom first because mom's before anything.
Of course.
And he gives her a hug, he gives her a kiss, she's smiling, she's happy, and then he comes over to me. I didn't say anything. He just takes my hand and he whispers in my ear, everything's going to be okay. I'm never leaving you. I'm always going to be with you. And then I woke up. And I think from that day forward, that's when I realized he really does understand what I'm feeling and what I'm going through. And so does God. And even when I don't see a sign like that, I still always know, like, he knows what's best for me. He's always watching over me.
That is a crazy story. As someone who has also never dreamed about their lost parent, that's an incredible story to hear through what you went through and how you got some sort of sign. I mean, there's different opinions on signs, and that's just very interesting to see that this all came together right before you went to seminary for the year.
Yeah.
That you got a little bit of that clarity before
100%.
even going.
He's been in my dreams before. It's not like it wasn't like a shock that he was in that dream, but it was a shock that happened in the dream. And it really gave me clarity, and it made me feel like a much stronger person, and it made me feel like I could move a mountain.
Wow. And for someone that doesn't have those types of signs in their lives, to find that clarity, is there another way that you kind of picked up on that, whether before or during seminary? And to not always be, angry at God and that something might be happening for a reason.
So it's definitely, it's hard to realize that, okay, this is happening for this reason. And I mean, most of the time we don't even know the reason. We really never know.
Can you tell us a little bit about your cemetery experience? Are there certain things that you do there to connect with your father? Who do you go with? How often do you go?
So I'm a little bit embarrassed about this, but
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's really, really hard for me to go to the cemetery. I can't remember the last time I was there. I think, there for either someone else's unveiling or someone else's funeral. And it's usually my mom goes Erev Rosh Hashanah because my father passed away Erev Rosh Hashanah. But I know I'll get to that place one day where I'll feel comfortable enough to go and like sit down and just be there and and not have a hard time with it. But I just don't think that I'm there yet, even though it's been years. Going into any cemetery, you just feel like this huge weight on you. It's not a good feeling, but I also am trying to work on building my confidence so that I can go and maybe I'll feel something different being there and feel some sort of other connection. So I feel horrible saying that I haven't gone, but it's genuinely a hard thing to do.
Right, it's definitely not easy going to the cemetery, seeing someone you lost.
As you shared with us, that's something that is very difficult for you, and I'm sure there are many other difficult things that you have to do in your life. Do you believe that difficulty builds character? And can you give us an example from your own life?
So, yes, I definitely think that going through a huge loss definitely changes you as a person. I know it's changed me as a person, and I know it's weird to say, but it's changed me for the better, and it's made me realize that I'm so much stronger than I think I am, because we don't have any control over what happens to people around us or the people we love. We can just learn from those experiences. And yeah, I wouldn't wish it upon anyone to lose a parent at such a young age, lose anyone at such a young age. But Hashem obviously knows what's best. And yeah, obviously I'm not going to have my father walk me down the aisle at my wedding. And it's going to be really, really hard for me. But I know that he's still going to be there spiritually. But I think that knowing that he's always with me, it gives me a sense of calm, because I feel a sense of confidence. Like, I feel like he's inside of me and like whispering in one side of my ear, like, Eliana, you can do this. You got this. And it's okay to be upset. It's okay to have moments where you cry. It's okay to have moments where you're angry. But just know that losing someone is only going to make you a stronger person than you already are. So I guess it's a piece of advice.
I think that's a very amazing piece of advice. What do you think, Anina?
I think that one of the goals of this podcast is to share that with everyone. You know, like, when this podcast started, it's a horrible thing. As we were speaking that earlier, it's a horrible thing when you lose a parent at a young age. But also, this podcast is kind of to make something beautiful out of something that's really, really tragic. And I think that at least I strive in life to always look at life as the glass is half full. And even though everyone who's sitting here and everyone who's listening to this podcast lost a parent at a young age, I think that the next step is to really think and say, what can I do with that? Because this thing happened and it's tragic, but what am I going to do with this to make it something beautiful in my life?
Right, that's a great point.
Thank you.
No problem, Anina. As you've shared so much great advice with us, again, thank you so much for being here, Eliana. We really appreciate everything you've shared with us today. I know it may not be easy, but it's much appreciated to me, and I'm sure anyone who's listening to this can benefit a lot from it in their lives.
Thank you so much, Eliana, for coming and sharing everything with us. It was really a pleasure to hear from you, and thank you for everything you shared.
As I said, you've given us so much amazing advice. Is there one huge piece of advice you can offer us and our listeners?
First of all, thank you so much for everything. Second, I think my biggest piece of advice is probably, it sounds weird, but cry. Just let it all out. It doesn't matter if you think you look ugly crying. It doesn't matter if you scream cry. Just let it all out, because the more you bottle it all up, the worse it's going to make you feel. and you're going to just dig yourself into a deeper, darker hole. Oh, one more thing. Yeah. Also,
Please.
Write down your emotions, write down what you're feeling. And if you remember any good moments that you had with your loved one, write it down so that you always have it to look back on.
I think that's amazing.
Very important to diary, to write a journal.
To journal.
To journal.
Yeah.
To journal, to paint, to puzzle.
To paint a puzzle.
To paint a puzzle.
To paint a puzzle. Yeah.
To paint a puzzle. Thank you so much again, Eliana. This was amazing. We really appreciate you coming out today.
Thank you.
Thank you again so much for listening to another episode of the Letter S podcast, inspiring one life at a time. Please make sure to check out our Instagram at the Letter S podcast _. If you have any questions or are interested in hopping on a mic with us, feel free to email us at theletterspodcast@gmail.com. And as always, stay in touch.